All right, we're going to take a look at trigonometry assessment. First thing you always start by doing is drawing your triangle. So they've already drawn it for you. I'm just going to make one without all the bells and whistles and label it. So that's everything from the picture. All right, so first thing you always do is label your triangle. So find your angle. That's going to be opposite. Find your 90, which is the box right here. That's going to be my peeing man with his legs. And he pees on H, and whatever's left over is A. Then what do? You box the things outside with variables or numbers. So I only have one, which means the variable must be one of these two. So let's find the question and see what it says. The angle of elevation, blah, 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 based on information, which of the following is the closest to the height of the tree? So height of the tree is what we're looking for, so that's going to be my variable, so label it whatever you want. I'm going to label it Y because we're always doing X. So that means there's a box with that. All right, so what two am I using? O and A. So what's the phrase? Sokotoa, or you could do 3 old angels sitting on high, chatting about heaven. That's how I remember it, but you can do Sokotoa. So I need O and A. Which one has O and A? Not that, this one. So tan. So let's set it up. So you write tan of the angle. Where's the angle? Right here. So tan of 50 equals opposite, which is this one, Y, over adjacent, which is 4.8. All right, then what do? You need to solve for Y. So I can get rid of this, so I can have Y by itself by multiplying both sides by cross multiplying. So like that. Actually, you know what? We're going to do it like this so that you could really see it. Cross multiplying. So there's my cross. So we're going to have 4.8 times that. So 4.8 times tan 50 equals 1 times Y, which is Y. And then once you have Y by itself, you're just putting it in the calculator. So let's put that in the calculator. So we're going to go 4.8 times tan 50. 5.72. So look for the answer that's closest. 5.7. All right, number 1. Take a look at number 2, which for you I think is on the bottom, but that's okay. Number 2, blah, blah, blah. So let me take my triangle again. Let's try it right here. Let's label any numbers. So this is names of streets. So the only number I have is this one. So it must be in the question. So the distance between 10th Street and Main Street along Highway 1 is 5.6. So between 10th and Main. So here's 10th and Main. So the distance between 10th and Main Street along Highway 1. So along here. So distance from this street to this street along Highway 1 is 5.6. So this is 5.6. All right. Which measure is Main Street? So here's Main Street. So that's going to be my variable. So again, you don't have to use X. You can use any variable you want. So let's use T. All right. So the first thing you do, label your triangle. So here's my box. Here's my guy. What is he doing? He pees. He pees on what? H. Find your angle, which is right here, across, jump over the P, and that's going to be O. What's left over is A. Then you want to do boxes. So boxes are on things that have variables or numbers. So that's this one and this one. And then you want to write out my phrase, 3 old angels sitting on high, chatting about heaven, or Sokotoa. Then which ones are boxed? O and H. So you're looking for O and H. So I look at the first one, O and H. So it's that one. Then let's write it out. So we're going to write out sine of the angle, which is what? 40, equals opposite. What's opposite? 5.6. Over hypotenuse. What's hypotenuse? T. Again, because we're not looking for the angle, you're going to cross multiply and divide. So you put a 1 underneath, and I'm going to draw it this way just so that I can't get confused. So cross multiply and divide. So this times this, this times this. So this times this is t sine 40 equals this times this, which is 5.6. But wait a second, my variable is not on its own yet. So what do I need to do? Get it on its own. So what is this? This is t times sine 40. So how do I get rid of it? I divide by sine 40. Remember, sine 40 is just a number. Like if I punch out in the calculator, sine 40, the number is 0.642. So this is like saying 0.642t. So then that crosses out. So that's gone. So now I have t equals 5.6 over sine 40. All right. The faster way to remember this is if it's on the bottom, just switch these two. That's the fastest way to do it instead of doing all this work. But just switch these two and then you'll be good. All right, so punching that in the calculator. So I only punch something in the calculator when I have the variable by itself. So right now it's by itself, so I'm going to punch in 5.6 divided by sine 40. Sine 40, which is 8.712. So t is 8.712 blah blah blah. Which answer is that? Okay, I know you can't really see, but this is like a 4.7. This is 7.3. The only one that has 8 is this one, so 8.7, which is A. All right, number 3. Again, always draw a triangle. Label what we're given. So we're given this 12. That's all the information we're given. So now we need to figure something from the question. It says the figure below sine of b equals 0.8. So again, always write SOHCAHTOA. So 3 old angels sitting on high, chatting about heaven. SOHCAHTOA. And they give you sine. So they're using this one. So we're going to write it out because the hint says set up sine b equation, then set it equal to 0.8. So let's write that sine b. So sine of b, which means b is the angle. So this is the angle that we're given. All right, equals. Now label that. Using this angle, let's label our triangle. So here's my man. He pees on H. Here's my angle because it's B. So that's O, and this is A. Now what is sine? Sine is opposite. So what's opposite? It's got a number there. Opposite, which is 12, over, and over hypotenuse. And what's hypotenuse? I don't know. So let's go ahead and put a variable. Shall we use? We used y. Let's use s. Okay, so s. And what they're saying is, then the figure below, sine of b, so sine b is equal to 0.8. So we're going to set it equal to 0.8 because sine b is 0.8. So sine b is 0.8. So what we're saying is 0.8 equals 12 over s. So now we solve for s because they're asking what's the length of AB? AB, which is the s we're looking for. So again, put a 1 over, cross multiply and divide. So s times 0.8, which is 0.8 s, equals 1 times 12, which is 12. Is a variable by itself? No, so I need to divide. We're going to divide by 0.8 because that's what's bothering the s. So s equals 12 divided by 0.8. 12 divided by 0.8. 15. So s is equal to 15. And again, anytime the variable is on the bottom, just swap these two out. Because if you swap this two, it will be 12 divided by 0.8 instead of doing all this work. Okay. All right, number 4. What is the value of y in this triangle? So this is really essentially what I'm looking for. Okay, hint, find the measure of x. So I need to find this, then measure both x and y, then subtract the 2 and y alone. So we're looking for just this, but the problem is this is not a right triangle. Remember, Trig and Pythagorean theorem only works on a right angle triangle. So this is not a right angle triangle. The right angle triangle I see 2 of them. I see this big one here and then this small one. So if I use this small one to find x, and then once I find that, use this big one to find this whole thing, I can subtract x from the whole thing and it'll give me y. That's what this is saying. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to do two triangles. One is the big one, and then one is the small one. Okay, so this one is x, and this one is x plus y. So I'm going to show you again. So this one is a small one. So that one's x, and then that's 3, and that's 8. That's the small one. Now ignore that line and look at the big one. Okay, look at the big one. So over here, the angle is not just this little one or this little one, it's all of it. So that one's going to be the x plus the y. Then the horizontal length is still 8. And the height is now 3 plus 3, which is what, 6. So those are my two triangles. So the idea is I'm going to find this little one, then find this big one, then subtract from that little one and give me this left. All right, so let's label. Doesn't matter which one you find first, I guess. All right, so let's label. Across from the angle is O. He is my peen man. He pees on H. What's left over is A. Label the other triangle. Might as well do this together. He is my peen man. That's H. Here's my angle. That's O. What's left over is A. All right, boxes around what you have and what variables or numbers you have. So this one has something, this one has something, that one's blank. On this one, that's blank. This one has something, this one has something. So both of them are using O and A. So again, write out my word. 3 old angels sitting on high, chatting about heaven, or Sokator. So I need O and A, O and H, A and H, O and A. So I'm using this one. So I'm going to do 2 equations, one for this one for this one. So for this one, for this big one, tan of the angle. So tan of x plus y. And you don't have to label it x plus y. You could do this on your picture and label it, I don't know, t. It doesn't matter, whatever. But what I mean is this big angle. So tan of x plus y equals opposite. What's opposite? 6 over adjacent. What's adjacent? 8. All right, when you're finding the angle, remember, you just need to get rid of this tan by taking the inverse of tan. So, and I'm running out of space. Let's just squeeze it here. X plus y equals the inverse of 6 over 8. And you're just going to punch that in the calculator. And then x plus y equals. So remember, to find the inverse, you're going to press this. Let me zoom out so you can see. Second. Okay, so I want the inverse tan, so I go second, tan. So you see how it gives me that -1 over there. 6 divided by 8. So it's 36.86. Don't round right now. I'm not going to write it all out because it's in my calculator, but don't round until the very end. So for the big one, that's what it is. All right, let's do the small one. So what we're saying is this whole thing is 36.8, blah, blah, blah. All right, this small one, same thing, O and A. So that means we're using tan. So tan of the angle, which in this case, this angle is x, equals opposite, O, 3 over adjacent, which is 8. And again, to find the angle, you just take the inverse. So you need to get rid of tan. To get rid of tan, you take the inverse. Remember, it's not tan of the number, so this is not a number right now. It's tan by itself we're trying to get rid of because that's the variable. So inverse tan of 3 over 8. So x equals, again, inverse tan is shift tan, and we want to go 3 divided by 8. 20.55. All right, so what we're saying is this little angle right here is 20.55, and then the whole thing is 36.8. Let me draw this so that you could see this. What I'm saying is this. So you have an angle here. This little one is 20.55. And then x plus y, which is the whole thing, this whole thing is, where is it? 36.8. And my question is, what is this one? What is y? So this plus this will give me this whole thing. So how do I find this? I just subtract these two and that will give me that. So if I did, so y equals 36.8 blah 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 minus 20.55. And since I have it right here, I'm going to go 36.86989.765 minus, and to put answer like this 20.55, I'm just going to show you something real quick. If you do second, and then you see where it says answer in blue on under the negative sign, it will put what your last answer was. So if I do that, I'm going to get 16.31. And since this is an open-ended, I have to look at my rounding. So y equals, and round to the nearest degree. So that's the nearest whole number. So we want no decimals, so it's going to be 16. And then now you look here. Is this 3 going to change to 16? No, only 5 and above. So 16 would be my final answer. Okay, so that one's, it's a little bit more complicated because you're doing 2 questions in one, but this will be how your EOC questions looks like. Always just draw triangles and then go from there. You'll figure it out as long as you start. All right, final question. Number 5. All right, from the observation, blah, blah, blah. Here's my triangle. Let me find my triangle. So here's my triangle. Label what I got. So I got this 70. Okay, now here's the problem. This angle is not inside my triangle, which helps me because it says hint here, find one of the angles inside the triangle. So 2 things that you could do. So I'm going to do both ways. So I'm going to do another triangle. 70. All right, so I'm going to do it both ways so that in case, depending on which one you picked. All right, so let's say you're going to pick the one, I guess, I don't know, this might be most obvious. Do you see that this would be a box? Because it's the horizontal and vertical is always going to make a box. So if that's a box, this value is what? 90, right? And if this whole thing is 90, and part of that 90 is 25, how would I find that? I would subtract, right? Because the whole thing is 90. So I'd go 90 minus 25, and that will give me 65. So this inside angle is 65, because when I add these two, 65 plus 25, I will get 90, because this whole thing is 90. So I can use that as one of my triangles, one of my angles, so 65 degrees, and then solve it from there. Or, because now I have the 2 pieces of information I need. Or the other thing that I could do is, back from when we learned parallel and perpendicular lines, this is a horizontal line. This is a horizontal line. Do you see my what? What is this called? My Z, right? And my Z says that this and this are congruent. Why? Because they're alternate interior. Because if I draw like my little house, I'm not going to draw the house the whole way, but I guess I can erase this so it doesn't confuse you. If I draw my little house, right, they're inside, both of them are inside, so this will be 25. So the other triangle that I'm dealing with is this one, which has that, the 70, and now this 25. So 2 separate triangles, but they're going to give you the same answer no matter what, whichever way you do it. So we'll start with this one. Here's my man. He P's on H. Here's my angle. That's O. What's left over is A, right? All right, so boxes around what we need. Oh, and what's the question, I guess? What was the question asking? Because that depends where my variable goes. What is the horizontal distance to the nearest meter from the base of the lighthouse? So here's the lighthouse. From the base of the lighthouse is right here to the fishing boat, and here's the boat. So what's this distance here? So I'm going to go ahead and label that. Let's label this Z. And since it's the same question, we're going to label this, maybe not Z, because let's label it Y, because we already used Z. Okay, so boxes around what I've used. And then right Soka toward down, 3 old angels sitting on high, chatting about heaven. And then what do I need? O and A. O and A, which is this one. All right, so then write it out. Tan of the angle, what's the angle? 65 equals opposite, which is Z, over adjacent, which is 70. Put a 1 underneath, cross multiply and divide. All right, so cross multiply. So that would be 70 tan times tan 65 equals 1 times Z, which is Z. Variable is on its own, which means I can straight up put it in the calculator. So I got 70 times tan 65. 150.1. So Z equals 150.11 to the nearest meter. So Z is 150, and you can't see the answer choices here, but I don't know, whichever one is 150. So Z is 150. All right, I'm going to show you the other way and show you that it gets the exact same answer. So again, P in man. P's on H. Find my angle. Crossover, that's O. So this is A. Boxes. So it's still O and A. It's just that, look, notice the O and A are switched, right? All right, so it's O and A. So it's going to be tan of the angle, which is now 25, equals opposite, which is 70, over adjacent, which is Y. Put a 1 underneath, cross multiply and divide. Remember, this one is the shortcut where you could just switch these two, but I'm going to cross multiply and divide just so that you know. You can see the math. This times this, so Y times tan 25 equals 1 times 70, which is 70. I can't put in the calculator yet because Y is not by itself. I have to get rid of what? This whole thing right here. How do I get rid of that? Divide both sides by tan 25. So Y equals, that's gone, 70 over tan 25. And now you're just punching that in the calculator. So 70 divided by tan 25. See how it's the same? Because it doesn't matter. So Y equals 150. So whatever answer that is. And that's pretty much it.